And welcome back to the channel where we talk about only good comics. I'm Brant, and this is Friday First. This is that series where we talk about those brand new #1 issues, character debuts, story arcs, and the like. And this is for books that are coming out on August 28th, 2024. And yeah, it's the end of the month. It's the last week of books for August as we head into start to wind down summer and get into the fall. And we got a lot of books to talk about as always. Going to start off with the recaps from last week. Of course, I'm going to do something a little bit different with the other most anticipated at the end of the show. But before I get into all of that, I want to shout out the return of Comic Book Weekly this past Tuesday. We debuted season 6 of the long-running show, and I will share a screen with you here of the Comic Frontline website, which hosts all the episodes of Comic Book Weekly. Got a brand new fresh paint job on this website as well, and a new logo for the Comic Frontline logo that matches the Comic Book Weekly logo. And you can find all of our individual channels here in this drop down now, so you can find a feed of, like, say, this channel right here on the website, which is kind of cool. Or you can find all the episodes of Comic Book Weekly right there. So season 6 begins. So go check that out, or you can go to cbwpodcast.com, which will take you to our YouTube channel. So just wanted to shout out the show. If you're not familiar with that show, a lot of you came over here from that show. But if you're not familiar with it, every Tuesday, or most Tuesdays, I should say, at 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time, myself, Mike Spiderslayer, and Kat Kamikuno go live, and we share our top 5 comics of the week. We talk about the latest in industry news. We sometimes have a main topic that we talk about as well. And we just have a good time for hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours typically. So join us live or go watch it post live, and then come back here on Fridays for Friday First. So let's get into those books. The first one I'm going to talk about is Power Rangers Infinity. These are the #1 issues from last week that I got to read. I read 5 of them so far, and this is one of them. So this is by Sam Humphries and the team from Crowded, I believe, the art team. Brant and Stein. And this was definitely a different kind of Power Rangers from Boom Studios. Not what we had been used to, and I can't say it was really my thing. It was a one-shot, one and done, fun story, beautiful art. You know, if you're into that style, it was very colorful, it was very meta in the sense that it featured a character named Lola, who was an aspiring artist who went to a comic convention to have a portfolio review, obsessed with Power Rangers, and then gets pulled into an actual Power Rangers adventure, which is a fun concept, kind of silly. All the characters involved were just kind of goofy versions of Power Rangers that don't really exist. It's just oddball goofiness, very different from, like, the vibe that Higgins, Parrott, and Flores kind of presented in that very long epic run of Power Rangers. So not really my thing, but at the same time I still had fun with it and I enjoyed the concept of it. But I am glad it's just a one shot, and I'm curious to see what comes next with Power Rangers. Next is Archer and Armstrong Assassin Nation. This is a 2-issue miniseries that leads up to the resurgence of the Valiant universe. All these books are miniseries leading up to whatever is coming at the end of this, which is Resurgence. And we'll have to see how that plays out. But this was very classic Archer and Armstrong. If you're not familiar with what's been going on with this team, so Armstrong was an immortal. He's one of 3 immortal brothers. Actually, there's 4 of them. One of them is a sister. And Archer was in this religious cult, and he's, like, super skilled. He has, like, this eidetic memory, and he picks up skills like crazy. So over the course of time and through various series, they've switched places where Archer is now immortal and Armstrong is not. And so anyway, this particular plot involves them being kidnapped and forced into gathering these items that kind of keep this demon at bay that has kind of been enslaved since the founding of America, and some of the riches and glory of the 1% have kind of derived from that, and it involves the Masons and all this stuff. But that there's a lot of setup for the story at the beginning of this issue, but where it gets fun is when Archer comes in contact with his former adopted sister, Mary Maria, who has this like whole assassin team. Like they're almost like what are they called? Ra's al Ghul's League of Assassins. They're almost like that, but they're zealots, and anyway, things kind of go crazy from there. So it's just like regular antics. Not the strongest Archer and Armstrong story I've read, and I am kind of glad that this particular plot is only 2 issues, but I'm curious to see what's going forward with them. There are references to Faith, because Archer used to date Faith and stuff like that. So I liked it. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my favorite Archer and Armstrong story. Next, we have Nightclub 2, issue 1. This is volume 2, the new era post big game, now at Dark Horse, but continuing right where Nightclub volume 1 left off. And we have the 2 that are together and dating now, and the one that split ways from them because he was in love with the girl and he's mad at the guy. So now he's with the popular crowd because he's using his powers to kind of gain popularity by playing basketball really well. And the other 2 are still fighting crime and all this stuff. So they are at odds. And now by the end of this issue, it looks like things might even get worse for, I can't remember his name, but the guy that went solo, because it seems like he's getting into some shady stuff. So really solid issue. I like the dynamic between the 3 where, you still have them trying to be friends with him, but him wanting nothing to do with them and kind of falling into the wrong crowd. And now we're going to see how that plays out with the vampirism and everything. And you've also got kind of the cops are there and they don't know what's going on, but they don't want anything to do with the superpower part of this, and everybody still thinks they're doing fake YouTube stuff. So it's just this really interesting dynamic, and it was a sleeper hit for me, but I really enjoy it so far, including the first volume and this first installment of the second volume. Still solid story, solid characters, enjoying it for what it is. Sorry, I'm getting a little hoarse. Barely been talking. All right, next book is Stand Still. This is from Lee Lowridge and Image Comics. Didn't know what to really think about this book. It was interesting format because it's a bunch of double-page spreads. But I like it because the main character, so basically the concept is, and you kind of pick up on the concept as you're reading it if you're not familiar with the book and you haven't read the description or anything. You kind of pick up what's going on, but it almost looks like he's a speedster. His vibe, his personality is a little bit Quicksilver and a little bit just, I don't know, psychopathic, I guess. But he's obviously a for-hire guy that goes out and does these crazy jobs. We don't know exactly why or what his purpose is yet. But he almost feels like a speedster, but basically he's able to stop time. And that's why it's called Standstill. And his missions have a little bit of altruism to them. There's a little bit of righteous or self-righteous behavior in different cases involved with what he does. But it's not like he's a superhero at all, because he's doing some really, shady things as well. But there's like instances where he kind of gets at this guy for really hitting on this stewardess hard and like making her uncomfortable and everything. So little things like that. But the bigger missions at play are because whether it's revenge, whether it's like a political move, whatever. And then on the other side of it, there's this guy that's become so obsessed with figuring out what is going on because he's found a pattern of all these things happening simultaneously and doesn't understand like this government conspiracy thing, so much so that his job fired him and his wife left him and all this stuff, but he's actually on to something. So really interesting first issue. I enjoyed it. quite a bit, and I will definitely continue to read this. Not what I expected at all, but those are the kind of books that are kind of fun to get into. So I'm curious to see where this story is going. And finally, Wolverine Revenge, the most anticipated book of the week by many. I won't say that I was disappointed with the book, but it wasn't. I think I had higher expectations. Like myself, Mike, and Kat were talking about this in a private chat about how we all kind of had high expectations for this book. You know, it's Jonathan Hickman, it's Greg Capullo, but it was okay. It didn't blow my socks off. It wasn't like this masterpiece of storytelling, visually or verbally, but it was decent. It was a decent read. Wasn't a waste of time or anything like that. I'm not like dogging it at all. It just wasn't. I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting from this, but basically, it's also a period piece in a way because it takes place during when the asteroid M exploded, Magneto died, and let out this electromagnetic pulse that kind of sent everything sideways. So Wolverine is kind of vacationing in the Savage Land, and he gets recruited by Captain America and some of the Avengers to kind of right things where they went wrong, and kind of goes on this mission, and it gets bloody and all this stuff. But it just, I don't know. It just felt like something. I don't know. It just wasn't what I wanted, I guess, is the best way to say that. So it is what it is. I would love to hear what your thoughts are, if you enjoyed it, if it did something different for you, if it stood out for you. For me, it was just okay, and putting it in the time period that it was in kind of took me out of it too, because it became a nostalgia book, and we get so many of those, and I was hoping that this would be something fresh, I guess. I don't know what I wanted, but it was okay. It was decent. All right. So with that all out of the way, let's get into this week's firsts. And interesting week for first. I'll say that before we get into it. All right, we're going to start out the week with the first of 3 honorable mentions. First one being Berserker, the Lost Book of B, #1. If you are a fan of this overall series, this is still co-written by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kent. I don't know I don't really read Berserker, so I don't know anything about it, but I definitely wanted to let all the Berserker fans out there watching this know that there is a new book out, The Lost Book of B, so check that one out. And speaking of Jonathan Hickman, joined by Esad Ribic for an Aliens vs. Avengers book. Second honorable mention, if you're an Aliens fan and you like to see these kind of crossover books, like the last one was Predator and Black Panther. These kind of stories, if that's your thing, you definitely want to check this one out. Aliens vs. Avengers issue #1. And the last honorable mention is the Incredible Hulk annual #1. The next part of the Infinity Watch saga. If you are still keeping up with the Infinity Watch saga and you're wanting to see it through to the end, this is the next part of that. I've kind of fallen off of it a little bit because of too many books in a row that didn't catch my attention. Then I just kind of fell behind. So I've got like 3 issues still to read of this. So that's why it's an honorable mention and not one of the books that I'm highlighting this week. So right now we're getting into why this is an interesting week, because apparently this is anniversary week. So the next, I think, 4 books I'm talking about, technically 5, are all anniversary editions. So this is going to be interesting. So the first one is Transformers 40th Anniversary Edition #1. Now, what this actually is a reprint of the very first Transformers comic, the part of a 4-issue miniseries by Marvel. Now it's Skybound version, different variant covers for this book as well, as you can see here. But you see the classic team. Bill Mantlo did the story, Ralph Macchio writing, penciled by Frank Springer, etc. So this classic team, and it's it's kind of cool that they're doing it. It's a $4 Transformer book, addition to that first issue. If you never got to read it before, or it became too expensive, I don't know exactly what it's going for these days. But this is a brand new printing of that book to celebrate 40 years of Transformers. So I thought that was pretty cool. All kinds of characters in this book as well. So, but obviously, I'm going to give it a positively good. It's the first Transformers book, and that Transformers run was pretty solid. So. Next one is Marvel 85th Anniversary Special, celebrating 85 years of Marvel at this point, which is crazy. And you have all kinds of creators in this, all kinds of stories. We're doing a contest of champions. There's a Miss Marvel story with with a secret exploit of Excalibur. All kinds of stuff. You got Alan Davis, Steve Skrosky. You got Christopher Priest, Iman Vellani, Joe Caramagna, Ryan North, Sabir Pirzada. So all kinds of creators telling all kinds of stories in this $7.99, 72-page book. So I am giving this one a possibly good, just because these anthology books are always kind of iffy for me. But it does have some cool characters and creators involved. I don't know if I'm actually going to get this, though. So just putting that out there. Next, we have the 30th anniversary of Zero Hour. So this takes place in that Emerald Twilight time where Hal Jordan became Parallax and Kyle Rayner was the main Green Lantern and all that stuff. But this, unlike the unlike the Transformers one, is an actual news story, I believe. Ron Mars and Dan Jurgens are writing, with Paul Pelletier and Jerry Ordway and Kelly Jones and Daryl Banks doing art. Maybe it's multiple stories. I'm not sure. But it says Dan Jurgens and Ron Mars return to the world of Zero Hour with an art team comprised of all-star DC talent to celebrate the landmark anniversary. What repercussions will their story today have for those of tomorrow? So it's an oversized book. This is an 80-page book for $9.99, perfect bound, with a wraparound cover. So if that era was your jam, you might want to check it out. I was a big Kyle Rayner fan as far as Green Lantern went. So I probably will check this one out, and I'm going to give this one a potentially good, because I think it might be a little bit stronger than the Marvel one for me. The next one isn't really my thing, but I'll give it a caveat just because of the creators involved with this. So this is the Farscape 25th Anniversary Special. I really tried to get into Farscape, the series back in the day. I borrowed it from a friend of mine. Tried to really get into it. Just it wasn't for me. But I know that the books were really huge from Boom at that time. I was one of the core team of a site called comicrelated.com at the time. And at that period in time, we actually did some big interviews with the people behind the Farscape books from Boom at the time. I think it was like 2009 era. And it was pretty cool. The Boom, no pun intended, for the Farscape property at the time. And now they're coming back with this 25th anniversary special with Cena Grace, Sarah Gailey, Jackson Lansing, and Colin Kelly are getting involved with this. So that is pretty cool. That's some top level creators in the game today. So, and I'm a fan of their work in other properties. So I actually might try this one just because of the creators involved with this. But that's pretty cool. This 25th anniversary says it'll be the first Farscape comic published since 2010, honoring the series' legacy with brand new stories featuring fan favorite characters. So that's pretty cool, especially if you're a Farscape fan. You want to check it out, but I'm giving this one a promisingly good, actually. So hopefully it'll live up to the hype and be as good as those Farscape books before it. And keeping with that anniversary, we have Farscape Archived Edition Issue 1. This is an archive-worthy, highly collectible edition of the first continuation of the beloved space opera. It's written by the show creator Rodney S. O'Bannon, along with writer Keith R.A. DiCandido. And I believe this is a reprint. Is it a reprint? It might be a reprint of the first issue that they did back in the day when they brought when Boom got the Farscape franchise license. If you missed that era and you want to go back in time and check that out, this one's $4.99, and I'm gonna give this one a well, I'll give it a promisingly good, just because it is. If it is a reprint, then it was pretty successful. So I just didn't read it. So yeah, we'll go with promisingly good for that. I'm not getting it, but I had to include it because it's freaking Sesame Street, right? So Sesame Street issue 1 from Oni Press. This is written by Joey Esposito with art by Austin Bachel. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. But anyway, this is a Grover story. I'm a Grover fan. My favorite Sesame Street character of all time was Grover. I've got a Super Grover Funko. Just he's my character. The monster at the end of the book was one of my favorite books as a kid. I turned it so fast and so hard back in the day because that last page is like you got to turn that. I ripped the page. It was taped up and everything because I read it so much. So I was a big Grover fan, big Sesame Street fan. And this is a Grover-centric story, so maybe I will buy it just for nostalgia. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I am going to give this one a potentially good. You never know with these kind of books if it is, but especially if you have kids, if you want to introduce them to comics and you are a Sesame Street fan, you might want to check this one out as well. Keeping with those kid books, we've got Archie, The Decision #1. And the interesting thing about this book, which I did not see this coming, this would not have been on my, proverbial bingo card for this year. But this is written by Tom King. Yes, that Tom King. Wonder Woman, Vision, Batman. Tom King is writing this book where apparently Archie finally decides between Betty and Veronica. It is illustrated by classic Archie artist Dan Parent, and you have Josie and the Pussycats, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Jughead's dog Hot Dog, all of them in this book. This full-length story, 32 pages for $3.99 from Archie Comics. I don't know what to think about Tom King writing Archie. That threw me for a loop. I'm giving this a potentially good. I'm a big Archie fan. Lifelong Archie fan. First Archie book I read when I was 6 years old. So I've been reading Archie for years and years and years. And I'm definitely going to pick this up and see what kind of Archie book Tom King can deliver. So there you go. Archie by Tom King. Next is Universal Monsters Frankenstein from Image Comics and Skybound, following up from the Creature from the Black Lagoon. This is the next installment in their MonsterVerse. This is by award-winning creator Michael Walsh. You may know him from the Silver Coin or other books, of course. Each issue of this limited series tells the shocking story behind one of the body parts used to create the unforgettable monster. So that's a unique take on the mythos of Frankenstein, kind of focusing on each of the patchwork body parts that formed Frankenstein. So that's really interesting. I kind of like that take on it. I don't know that that's been done before, but whether it has or not, I'm curious to check this one out, and I'm going to give this one a possibly good, just because I really don't know what to expect from it. So we'll see. Next up is Phases of the Moon Knight, issue #1. This is telling the history and the legacy of Moon Knight for the first time ever, supposedly, and it begins with a story where Moon Knight enacts his unique and violent vision of justice, as it says. Plus, there's an all-new Moon Knight from the past and from the old Crusades. And so kind of telling some period pieces. This is written by Erica Schultz, who I am a fan of. Not Jed McKay, who has been writing most of the Moon Knight stuff, but I am a fan of Erica Schultz's work. So I will give this one a shot. I've become a Moon Knight fan through Jed McKay's work, and so I'm definitely going to check this one out. I'm going to give it a potentially good. And, hopefully it'll deliver some cool, unique stories. Next up is a new book from Image Comics called Convert, issue 1. And this is about a science officer who gets stranded on this alien planet. He's starved and he's haunted by ghosts of his crew who died, I guess, on landing or whatever. But then he makes some kind of discovery. So this is written by John Arcudi, who did uh, Rumble and BPRD. And it's a sci-fi fantasy story, which is kind of my thing. So I'm definitely going to check it out. It's the #1 issue, of course. So I'm going to give this one a potentially good, and we'll see what it has to offer. Not a #1, but it is a milestone issue, so I had to include it here. The Amazing Spider-Man issue 56. It is 950 legacy number. And this is the Return of Tombstone. It's an oversized issue, 64 pages for $7.99. So be aware of the price tag there. John Romita Jr. is back on art, I believe, for this issue. Yeah. So I'm not super excited about this. I haven't enjoyed the Tombstone entrances in this particular arc all that well, but I'm a Spider-Man fan. I'm definitely going to pick it up. I'm going to give it a possibly good, though, but I did want to make you aware that it was a legacy, anniversary, or milestone issue, if you will. And finally, keeping with the Spider characters, we have Chasm, Curse of Kaine, issue 1, Battle of the Clones, as Kaine is once again trying to track down Ben Reilly. This seems to be their fate in the Marvel Universe, that their lives are always intertwined, and Kaine is always hunting Ben Reilly. But in this case, Kaine's the good guy and Ben's the bad guy once again. But I don't know what to think of this series. I don't know what it's going to be like. Steve Fox is writing it. I like some of Steve Fox's stuff, but I don't love the Chasm version of Ben Reilly. So we'll see. I really don't know again what to expect from this one. But I'm definitely going to check it out as a Ben Reilly fan, and I'm going to give it a potentially good, and fingers crossed that it's a really enjoyable story. But that's it for all the #1 issues this week. Not a lot of huge books in terms of first issues this week, but there are a lot of other books to look forward to, and I'm going to do a little something different with the ones that I'm talking about this time, which is instead of showing every cover, I'm just going to show a list, kind of go through it a little quicker. Maybe this will work better, make it a little shorter of a video. I don't know. But I'm still toying with doing something different with the other books that I read. So I thought I'd try the list this week, see what you all think. If you'd like me to go back to showing off the covers and talking about each one a little more in depth, let me know. But otherwise, I'm just going to run down. I have 8 other anticipated books this week. X-Men #3, been enjoying that series so far. Green Arrow #15 ties into Absolute Power, still telling the story of the Green Arrow family. Void Rivals issue 12, I believe this might be the end of the arc. Rook Exodus #5, one of the best books on the stand, loving that book. Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider #4, I think Jessica Jones is in this issue, and this might be like a fresh, a good jumping on point. I'm not sure exactly. It's still dealing with the TBA and all that stuff. Batman Offworld #5. This is the penultimate issue of this series, which has been delayed, or it's just coming out every few months. I don't know what the schedule is, but it's been a while since we've seen this book. The Sacrificers #11. Seems like we're getting yet another side of this story, and it says, can things be forgiven? We'll see where that goes. And Grommets #4, which is just a fun skateboarding slice of life book that I've been really enjoying so far. So again, let me know what you think about this version of those other most anticipated, or if you'd like me to go back to the way I was doing it before. But that's it. That's all the books I have to talk about this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you get to check out Comic Book Weekly. I'd love to interact with you over there as well if you are not watching that show already. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And of course, hit that subscribe and notification bell if you don't want to miss any of the content going up on this channel. Of course, you can follow me across social media. That's Instagram, X, TikTok, where I post a lot of videos over there, at Only Good Comics. and you can type in onlygoodcomics.com to take you right back to this YouTube channel where we see how many times I can say only good comics. So until next time, thanks for watching. Keep reading those comics, and I'll see you soon. Bye.